Smiley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Sunday, January 7th. So today we will see the moon in Scorpio go void, of course, at 3:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be locking into Sag energy at 4:09 p.m. So what we love about the Scorpio to Sagittarius transit is that the Sag energy is the light at the end of a very dark tunnel that happens to be the shadow work that we do in Scorpio energy. The Sag energy kind of lighting the way, holding the torch, revealing new truth, new perspective, new realizations, new details, new epiphanies that now we have to experiment with. We have to explore. We have to really push the boundaries of what we thought once was and really kind of push the boundaries on the possibilities of what could be. The Sag energy ruling over our curiosity, over our higher selves, over the greater, grander picture of what is now being revealed by acting as the observer. Jupiter rules over this Sag energy. Jupiter is as optimistic, as confident as we could possibly get, ruling over our belief system, our belief structure. We now have a different point of view, a different vantage point on what is possible for us as we close the door on the old, clean the slate in the present moment, and really start pushing the visual boundaries, if you will, in our inner realm on what could be. This is where we dream the biggest dream possible, where we really push the boundaries to expand our belief system, to expand our truth, to expand our emotional realm into something greater, plucking out the silver linings of our past experiences and using them to fuel the fire, the inspiration, the motivation that we need to really take off. So there's definitely going to be a lot of aha moments here today. There's 9 different aspects. 9 of them involve the moon, which means that this is a moon day, an emotional refinement day. Now, just before I get all of those comments like, oh no, not another emotional refinement day, let me just remind you that we are kind of programmed to hear certain words and to attach a certain understanding to them. I'm finding that every single time that I say that we're about to have an emotional day or an emotional refining type of day, everybody automatically thinks that it's bad emotion, that we're going to really be put through the ringer again, that we're going to be sad, we're going to be, just blubbering messes. That's not what I'm talking about. Emotions are full spectrum range emotions. We can find ourselves in the not so nice expression of emotion, but emotion is also happiness, excitement, empowerment, confidence. And so I really encourage you to kind of flip the script on the automatic emotion that you seem to kind of gravitate to anytime you hear that word as a trigger, as an activation. I think it's also a beautiful reflecting point that you can use, a framework, if you will, to understand what emotion your dominant programming takes you to. That is where you have to focus your energy. That is where you have to flip the script. That is where you have to understand that that is the emotion that you're most used to, and that you have some work to do to break out of that framework to expand on some of the other emotions, the other labels that we could use to the energy that we are definitely working with, that we don't want to compartmentalize, that we don't want to kind of stick into one particular narrative. So I have a lot of people, especially when I talk about moon days, because moon days, again, are our inner realm where we're refining it, we're triggering, we're activating certain emotions, certain narratives that will open us up to see the hidden details of our programming. But I've been noticing that a lot of people are very fearful when I talk about emotions because they think that it's going to be a downright blubbering mess, sadness, grief, nervousness type of energy, when realistically there's a whole spectrum of emotion that are on the positive side that most people don't orient to. So I just thought that that might be a helpful hint to put out there, because I am noticing that the collective mind space automatically has a negative connotation for when I say emotional refinement. Okay, so with that disclaimer out of the way, yes, there are 9 different aspects. All 9 are going to involve the moon, and we start the day off with the moon in Scorpio, making a positive interaction with Chiron, the wounded healer, who of course is now direct in Aries energy. Little bit of a side note, Chiron the wounded healer in this Aries energy has been helping us with our egoic self, with our identity in this egoic avatar. We have spent the last couple of months with Chiron retrograde, meaning there was a lot of inner reflection, a lot of inner awareness that needed to kind of illuminate to us where it is that we were holding some trauma, some pain, some wounds very tightly in our physical bodies, in our mental plane, in our emotional selves, in our memories. And now that Chiron has gone direct, I'm hoping that you'll notice that you're a little bit more, let's call it rebellious, more of a warrior type of spirit to examine a particular, let's call it flaw in the programming, a little bit of a disruption in the mental plane, in the emotional space. And we are more apt to identify it and do something about it. We're not kind of wavering like, oh, wow, we're not in victimhood. We're not like, oh, poor is me. We are more, I'm going to say, straightforward and easily able to identify the problem and then actually do something about it. We've been going through this, I call it rebranding, where it comes to our identity. If you want to call it a crisis point in identity, that is again a narrative and a perspective that you're kind of choosing. But basically what we're getting with this particular interaction is that the moon in Scorpio again is trying to push the boundaries of the inner transformation that needs to take place in our inner realm before we can engage the physical body to take action and make moves to make the changes, the transformations in our physical realm. And so the moon interacting with Chiron, lucky for us, it is in a positive way. This is showing us where it is that we are developing a new sense of self, where we are stepping into this new role, this new responsibility, this new identity, where we are bold, brave, courageous enough to identify the problem, to be straightforward and direct enough to actually address it instead of run from it or try to sweep it under the rug, and to actually want to help ourselves. So this is a beautiful interaction. We love this for ourselves. It's followed by the moon in Scorpio making a positive interaction with Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of the mental plane, ruler of information, communication, how it is that we express ourselves. Still in his post-retrograde shadow period until the 20th. In Sagittarius energy, we are still retracing our steps, so to speak. We're still kind of trying to make sense out of the epiphanies that we've gone through since the end of November. We're starting to piece together the bigger vision, the bigger dream. Again, we will not gain any kind of clarity until the 11th to the 20th. If you haven't listened to this week's ascension forecast as of yet, I'm going to recommend you do so. I go through why that is, what we're waiting for, when it's going to start rolling in, what that means for us. But at this particular point in time, it's a good sign because our heart space, the moon, in this transformative energy of Scorpio, Mercury, our headspace, in the most optimistic, most confident, bigger, grander perspective and picture that we could be in Sagittarius energy, we're on the same page. We're getting on the same page here. And we love that for us because the vision, the goals, the dreams that we're trying to conjure up for ourselves that we want to manifest, really getting that visual right, we're actually supporting it with the proper emotion in our inner realm to activate our heart and our head to get them in alignment so that the third piece is that we can engage the physical body, Mars. Very anxiously awaiting for that green light go ahead to take action and make moves to start building a strong enough foundation for our long-term goals to actually be built upon. So this is a good realization. This is an aha moment. We are in tune with ourselves. We're trusting our intuition. We're trusting the visual that we're very much focused on at this time, and things are starting to pop, starting to piece together, starting to make sense. The moon in Scorpio is going to trine Neptune. Neptune is in his place of power in this Pisces energy. We love this. This is water on water action, and water on water action means that it's refreshing, it's cleansing, it's healing, it's transformative. We are definitely accessing new levels of our intuition, of our spidey senses, if you will. We're really trusting our gut. We're really starting to kind of piece together the visual of what it is that we would like to be living. And of course, that is step number one, especially in January, a visual month as such as it is, in order for us to get our ducks in a row, So this is a spiritual refreshment, renewal, rebirth, resurrection, if you will, and it feels really good. This is where new creative energy is definitely available to us to tap into. We love this for us. This is definitely pushing the boundaries of where it is that we were sitting in the funk and recognizing, again, Moon in Scorpio, where we can use that funk as a building block to empower us to take our power and control back. The moon is then going to make a positive interaction with the North Node in Aries energy. We love this for us. Why? Because the North Node in Aries energy is our soul path. It's our destiny point. It's the path that we need to get on to reach our soul's next mission, next point of potential, next quest, so to speak. We love this because the Scorpio energy, being very kind of honed in to the subtle energies going on in the world, and really strategic, very intensely focused on the steps that need to be made in the proper way in which they need to be made in order to break free from the old and start initiating a new path, a new direction towards the new. And of course, that North Node in Aries energy is pushing for us to go on a solo adventure, for us to put our own wants, needs, and desires back at the top of the list, to understand thyself, to love thyself, to know thyself, to heal thyself. And we are definitely starting to understand from a different perspective what that actually means. The moon in Scorpio going to sextile Pluto. Pluto rules over the Scorpio energy, so this is going to be super intense. We know that when the moon starts kind of bouncing into Pluto, that the moon is nearing the final degrees before transiting into another sign. Why do we know that? Because Pluto is at the 29th degree in Capricorn energy. He will be moving into Aquarius energy on the 20th. Big day. Listen to the January energy overview if you haven't already. Listen to your zodiac forecast for the month if you haven't already. There are so many golden nuggets in all the content that I put out there that once you listen to it, once you start piecing things together, understanding where this is going to take place in your own life, you are going to have a totally different perspective on what needs to be done in the here and now as we approach these very pivotal energy shifting type of days. Anywho, the moon sextiling Pluto, its ruler, is a beautiful energy, a beautiful interaction. This is the boss up. This is the empowerment. This is the hidden details that we've unearthed over the last couple of days finally starting to make sense for us. This is really pushing us into a new level of understanding what needs to be done in order to close the door on the old, in order to clean the stage and set the tone for the here and now as we start working and building towards our futuristic goals. This is the point in time, again, 3:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that the moon is going to go void, of course. We're sitting in that until 4:09 p.m. We lock into Sag energy. About an hour later, we're going to have the moon in Sagittarius energy make an awkward interaction with Chiron, the wounded healer, in this Aries energy. What is this going to do for us, you may ask? Well, it's going to put us in a situation where we realize that we are conjuring up visions and dreams that may not be in actual alignment with who it is that we are, the vibration that we're currently kind of at, the, I'm going to say, ability to achieve said dreams, goals, and visions from this particular version of self. Now, that doesn't need to be a bad thing, but it is a realization on where it is that maybe we're living too much in la-la land and we're not being as realistic as we need to be in order to set the goals that we can actually obtain and achieve. And this is going to be an aha moment on where it is that we either are going to have to boss up within ourselves with this new identity, or we're going to have to kind of pull the reins back on what we actually believe is possible for us in a realistic sense instead of an imaginative type of fantasy sense. The moon in Sag then going to semi-square the sun. The sun, of course, is in Capricorn energy, shining a bright light on where it is that we have to start visualizing a different reality for us to be building towards. This is long-term goals. This is ambition. This is structures and foundations. And of course, the moon over here in Sag energy wants to be kind of optimistic, wants to be confident, but we really do fly very high in the Sag energy, almost to an unrealistic degree. And the sun in Capricorn ain't messing around with that. We don't have time to live in imaginary land and just kind of conjure up these visions and dreams that are so unrealistic that we may as well not even try to bring them to life. And let me just give you a good example here. You cannot be in a state of poverty wishing to become a millionaire, okay? That's a nice wish, but ain't nothing gonna happen with that, okay? What you need to be doing is saying, okay, if millionaire is actually my goal, then what can I do in my day-to-day life right now to make today better than yesterday was? What can I do in a month from now that would improve the situation that I've been living in for the last 6 months? This is about understanding that you can't go from rags to riches like, we've been conditioned to believe that is possible for the, let's call it 1% of the people. Even at that number is unrealistic. But what I'm saying to you is that you can't set such a big goal for yourself that illuminates the huge gap in distance between where it is that you're at and where it is that you desire to be. Instead, if being a millionaire is your goal, then you need to break that big vision down into small, manageable pieces that actually make sense, that are actually attainable, that is actually realistic. So that may mean creating a side hustle. That may mean, breaking away from what it is that you've been doing in an industry that isn't serving you and push the boundaries of what could possibly be. Maybe that means going back to school. Maybe that means upgrading your skills. These are the small little steps that will make up the greater, grander whole. But if you're just sitting around hoping and praying and trying to manifest to be a millionaire without doing any of the smaller steps to get from where it is that you're at to where it is that you desire to be, you're living in la la land. And guess what? Capricorn season, we don't got time for that. We are so realistic, so down to earth, so logical, so practical in this Capricorn energy that we will not tolerate our own damn selves living in a state of la la land, because it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of time. So this is why we have a semi-square. It's creating tension, creating conflict, because our emotions are just living in a fantasy land when our reality needs the time, energy, and attention to focus on the here and now and actually come up with a path, a plan, a strategy on how it is that we're going to improve our situation that doesn't involve us living in a state of fantasy that will never, ever, ever come true. Belief is one thing, but if that belief system is so out in left field, you're just creating disappointment for yourself, because those energies are not enough. Belief alone is not enough to manifest. There is a recipe, an equation for manifesting. If you're interested in it, I have a mini course. It's called Elemental Energy. You got to know thyself in order to understand your own elemental energy profile before you can start putting the pieces together. That manifesting equation is very real, but it does not operate on belief alone. And so I know that was a mini tangent, but I felt it necessary because this is why the semi-square between Sag energy and Capricorn energy always feels very conflicting, like we're torn, because there's a part of us that believes that as long as we believe, things can come true. But the Capricorn energy is over here like, fool, you need to back that up with some action in this real life here and now. You can't just be living in a la-la land on belief alone. And this is what gives us our tension, our conflict, and we can learn a lot about ourselves by realizing, acting as the observer on where it is that we give our inner realm too much permission sometimes, too much leeway to just go into the la-la land and live that space and not take the actions in the here and now necessary in order to align with that vision, that goal, that dream. Okay, so the moon in Sag is going to be making a positive interaction with Mars. So Mars is the god of war. He rules over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desires, even our anger. He was just in Sag energy. So this is a little bit of a refresher, if you will, because he just moved into Capricorn energy here on the 4th. If you haven't checked that astro forecast out, I'm going to recommend you do that. But basically, we're kind of stalled out here. We're having a hard time getting going here in this Capricorn energy. We do have to kind of break out of the funk and start gaining some momentum. And once we do that, Mars is just a workhorse in this Cap energy, but we're not there yet. And so the moon in Sag, again, emotionally speaking, has us, very optimistic, overly confident, almost to the point of delusion, if you will. We are just pushing the boundaries. We truly believe that we have these big ideas that we can bring to life, that we can achieve. Mars, of course, wants to take action to help us bring those visions to life, especially in the Capricorn energy that's focusing in on the long-term gains due to the short-term sacrifice. And this particular interaction is just reminding us of some of the goals that we did have for ourselves just a couple of weeks ago that maybe got sidelined, maybe got overwritten altogether. Some of the big ideas, the inspirations, the motivations that we had just a couple of weeks ago when Mars was deep in this Sag energy. It's a little bit of a refresher, a reminder of what we were once excited about that, again, just the energy shifts alone has kind of put on the back burner for us. This is going to put a little bit of pep back in our step. This is going to kind of rejuvenate us, inspire us, motivate us, again, renew that energy that has us focused on hopes and goals and dreams and actually putting us in the right mental space and I'm going to say physical action point to start initiating a path, a plan, a direction, a strategy towards actually experimenting with some of these ideas, visions, and goals and seeing what we can actually bring to life. The moon in Sagittarius energy, going to be squaring off, getting into the boxing ring with Saturn. Saturn is the Lord of Karma. He rules over roles, responsibility, systems, structures, foundation, willpower, discipline. He's in Pisces energy. Pisces energy, this whole particular transit, we are still, again, may I remind you, a little bit of a refresher here. Saturn is closing out his own very own cycle here in the Pisces energy. It takes forever for Saturn to go all through the zodiac wheel. He's at the ending of the zodiac wheel in this Pisces energy. This is where death, destruction needs to happen, especially in our delusions, especially in our, I'm going to call it belief system, in order for us to have a clean slate, align with the truth so that we can start building towards something new. May I remind you, my apologies, may I remind you that when Saturn moves into Aries energy, Neptune will be following because right now they're both in Pisces energy, but when they both move into Aries energy, that's a clean slate. That's when we start building new societal structures, new foundations in order to support new visions, new belief systems, new truth. But in order for that clean slate to be provided to us, the death, the damage, the closures, the destruction to the here and now, to anything that is not real, not true, not in alignment with our higher selves, needs to be destroyed, and that debris needs to be removed. This is why we're going through what we're going through here right now. The Pisces energy is our spirituality, our intuition, our creativity, based off of the old belief system that was very riddled with pain and trauma. And so Saturn is here to build something better in the place of the things that we're currently trying to destroy, that are not supporting us, that we can no longer pour time, energy, and attention into. So we're seeing this on the greater, grander stage of the collective. We're seeing this in our own lives. And the moon in Sag energy, who is all about, happy-go-lucky, optimistic visions and dreams and ideals and just pushing the boundaries of what could be and the possibilities that we could do. All of this high vibe energy, this very futuristic energy, we're getting into the boxing ring and fighting it out with Saturn, who wants to give us a reality check. Okay, so it's great, again, to live in la la land, to have a visual, to be inspired, to have hopes and wishes and dreams. But Saturn needs us to be realistic in doing that. Because again, there is no point in living in a fantasy land, hoping and praying for this, situation and circumstance to just arrive and knock on our door without backing it with actual action. This is what Saturn's all about. We have to build within ourselves a new foundation, a new structure of our belief system. Then we need to understand that there are new roles and responsibilities that we're going to have to boss up into in order to bring that belief system to life. This is about having the willpower and the discipline to see the hard things through, because we know at the end of the day that what we're fighting for is what we need to be fighting for. This is where healing comes in. This is where, the whole breaking away from the old constructs come in. And again, this is about surrendering, releasing, purging, and eliminating all of these fragmented old belief structures in order for quote unquote new Earth to have a clean slate to be built upon. So the moon interacting with Saturn, this square off, this tension, this conflict point doesn't feel good because one part of us just wants to live in this fantasy la la land, and Saturn is just knocking the wind out of our sails, bringing us back down to earth so that we have a logical, practical approach on how it is that we can actually achieve and obtain some of the hopes, the wishes, the goals, the dreams, the visions that the moon in Sag has us set up to actually want to manifest.